Well, good morning. I'm Marianne Edwards, Mayor of Temecula, and I'm going to call this budget workshop to order. Let's see. First, we're going to start with our flag salute, as we always do. And so if you'd please stand with me and put your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Councilmember Alexander is dropping her children off at school, so she'll be here in just a few minutes. Madam City Clerk, taking that into consideration, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Alexander will be joining us in a few minutes. Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Ron.
Here.
Councilmember Schwenk.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Okay, do we have any public comments today?
Madam Mayor, we do not have any public
No
comments.
public comments. Okay, then we're going to get right into business. Item number 1, review fiscal years 2022 through 2026 capital improvement program and fiscal year 2021-22 annual operating budgets for the city of Temecula, Temecula Community Services District, and the successor agency to the Temecula Redevelopment Agency. All right, let's have our staff reports.
Well, good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I am happy to share that the city's operating budget is balanced. The community services budget is balanced. The capital improvement program remains solid and well-funded. And given the unprecedented times that we are in, city operations have definitely been impacted. However, I'm pleased to say that we're beginning to see the economy rebound, revenues increase, and services returning where possible within the public health guidelines. Today, we will walk you through the budget process and highlight improvements that have been incorporated early on in the process. Director of Finance Jennifer Hennessy will summarize the COVID impacts and the proposed operating budgets for the general fund and the Measure S fund. Captain Zach Hall will present the police budget and highlight the department's special teams. Fire Chief John Crater will present the fire department budget. And Director of Community Services Kevin Hawkins will discuss the TCSD budget and how they've successfully pivoted and continued offering quality of life services during the pandemic. Director of Human Resources and Risk Management Isaac Garibay will provide an update on city staffing levels. And Director of Public Works Pat Thomas will discuss the capital improvement program budget, and Director of Community Development Luke Watson will summarize the affordable housing projects that are in progress and slated for future development. As you will see throughout today's presentation, the city's financial position is healthy, with all funds balanced and all reserves fully funded. The budget process begins each year in January with the review of the current year's budget and the development of revenue projections and the preliminary 5-year forecast, which serves as the baseline budget for the ensuing fiscal year. This year, we did things a little differently and brought an item to the City Council in early February to affirm our budget priorities and key fiscal policies. Council's confirmation of the priorities served as the foundation upon which staff developed the proposed budget. Additionally, we added budget engagement sessions with each of the city's 5 boards and commissions during February and March. Invaluable feedback was obtained through these meetings, and much of the board and commission members' feedback has been incorporated in our budget recommendations. We have a separate slide coming up to review their feedback. And during the month of April, the departments present their request via several internal review meetings, which culminate in the development of the proposed budget and capital improvement program that is being presented today. Any changes to the proposed budget and CIP that come from our discussions today will be incorporated into the final operating and capital budgets that will be presented to the City Council at the June 8th meeting. From the budget engagement sessions with the board and commissions, several themes emerged from the discussions, including the board and commission members overwhelmingly agree that the city's investment in resources are in line with the community's priorities. Public safety should remain the city's top priority. Continued investment in public safety, parks, amenities, and community services are highly valued. A continued fiscal responsibility and long-term planning are both critical to providing the desired levels of service that Temecula is known for. Some common suggestions provided by the board and commission members included increasing the safety in Old Town, add more sports fields and pickleball courts, provide affordable housing options, and maintain ongoing community engagement. You will see that we've taken these comments to heart and we have incorporated them throughout the budget and the CIP. You'll hear from Captain Hall that the Metro team has made immediate and noticeable impacts in Old Town. You'll see that a new CIP project has been added for pickleball courts, and a summary of affordable housing has been added to the budget documents detailing millions of dollars invested in housing options since the city's incorporation. Speaking of listening to our community and popular investments for our residents, the coming year will also bring the addition of more mini pump tracks within our park system, the continued addition of themed playground replacements, construction of a new splash pad for the public, given the popularity of Eagle Soar Park, a brand new intergenerational community center at Mike Nagar Community Park, a brand new sports park at Somers Bend, which we're calling the Ranch, significant investment in residential neighborhood slurry seal of their streets, and ongoing investments in our police and fire personnel and equipment, demonstrating our financial commitment to our #1 priority of public safety. And of course, a significant investment and dedication in pickleball infrastructure. Lastly, we will be presenting the largest capital improvement program in the city's history. These investments in Temecula's public infrastructure over the next 5 years is significant. And I do not want it to get lost on anyone how unique and how fortunate this is, especially for a city our size. We have worked extremely hard in this arena, securing outside funds. For context, Temecula's capital budget is north of $700 million. This is larger than many more populous cities and certainly larger than anything in the region, including the city of Anaheim, Irvine, Riverside, Moreno Valley, twice that of Corona, 7 times that of Murrieta, and larger than fast-growing cities like Menifee and Lake Elsinore. Several community outreach efforts are in progress this year with the update of the city's quality of life master plan and general plan documents. A citizen survey has recently been conducted and the top line results are being reviewed and will hopefully be ready to incorporate in the final budget presentation to the council in June. As with previous budget presentations, we would like to suggest that we be allowed to run through the program and slides in their entirety and then pause on the back end for discussion and questions and answers. We believe many questions may be answered or clarified when the whole budget picture is explained surrounding the AOB, the CIP, the Temecula Community Service District, and the 5-year forecast. Director of Finance Jennifer Hennessy will now review the fiscal impacts of the pandemic and the proposed general fund and Measure S budgets. Jennifer.
Thanks, Aaron. Good morning, Mayor and City Council members.
Morning.
In addition to the fiscal impacts of the pandemic, today's presentation will provide an in-depth explanation of the economic and financial assumptions used to project the city's various revenue sources. A year ago, when we were presenting the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget, just weeks into the pandemic, our projections were tentative at best. The unprecedented time caused much uncertainty. At that time, projections for the city's major revenue sources resulted in a loss of nearly $15 million. Because the stay-at-home orders impacted primarily the service and hospitality sector, many professional level workers actually experienced an increase in disposable income as they were no longer commuting, traveling, or spending on entertainment. Subsequently, sales tax, Measure S, and Measure A revenues all fared much better than originally expected. Actual loss in revenue, compared to our original budget projections, totaled just over $5 million. TCSD was impacted significantly more than originally anticipated due to the prolonged stay-at-home orders and subsequent shutdown of facilities, programs, and events. Later in the presentation, Kevin will walk you through how TCSD weathered 2020 and continue to offer an array of services to the community. For comparison purposes, the next series of charts shows how our projections have changed throughout the past year. Using a sensitivity model created a few years ago, the fiscal impact of the pandemic was forecasted over the next 5 years. As shown here, the anticipated drop in revenue caused the city's available fund balance to plummet without any corresponding reduction in costs. As presented in last year's final budget, significant reductions were recommended in order to balance the budget and maintain the majority of the city's reserves. Contingency plans were put into place in the event the pandemic worsened the expected impact of revenues, or if it improved, which fortunately they did. The model now shows a steadily increasing fund balance, reserves fully funded, and exceeding the 25% of expenditure target. Available fund balance hovers between $8 to $12 million per year for the combined 3 operating funds, the General Fund, Measure S, and TCSD fund, a much different outlook than 1 year ago. The General Fund serves as the city's primary operating fund and provides the resources necessary to deliver public safety, public works, community development, and administrative services to the city of Temecula. General Fund revenue for the current year is projected to be $79.5 million, with fiscal year 21-22 projected to increase to $87.3 million as the economy continues to rebound. Expenditures for fiscal year 2021 are $79.3 million, which will increase to $81.7 million next fiscal year. The General Fund also contributes resources to other funds as listed here. In fiscal year 2021, per budget policy guidelines, $2 million in surplus funds were deposited into the pension trust, which will be utilized to cover the increasing cost of the CalPERS pension benefit. Fire Station number 12 is owned by the state, and they've notified the city of a pending closure of the station within the next 5 years. So a new fund has been established to accumulate resources for the potential purchase of the station. The General Fund will contribute $1.5 million into this fund from the savings anticipated in the fire services contract, which will be discussed in more detail later. General Fund revenue is projected to increase 9.8% to $87.3 million, mostly attributable to the rebound in sales tax, transient occupancy tax, and additional Measure S funds to support public safety. Sales tax, property tax, and Measure S are all forecasted in conjunction with the city's consultant, HDL Companies, whose team is dedicated to analyzing transaction level detail and statewide economic trends. Projections in these categories show solid growth as the economy continues to recover after the pandemic. Transient occupancy tax, or TOT, is projected to increase significantly as this sector was hardest hit during 2020. The TOT forecast was prepared in conjunction with Visit Temecula Valley and is projected to be $3.2 million next fiscal year, which is still below its pre-pandemic level of $3.4 million per year, even with 3 new hotels coming on board this year. Measure S reflects funding for 11 police officers, staffing for Fire Station 95, future asset replacement, plus $3 million to augment public safety funding. Transfers in show a decline because of a one-time receipt in Federal CARES Act funding in the prior year. Total General Fund expenditures are projected to increase 3% to $81.6 million, of which 58% is dedicated to public safety. Public Works makes up 19% of the General Fund and is expected to increase 5.1% due primarily to increased parks maintenance expenditures for utilities and landscape maintenance for the new sports park at Summers Bend. Administration makes up 13% and is expected to increase just 1.8%. Community development makes up 8% of the General Fund and is expected to decrease 1% due to a reduction in consulting services within the planning department. I'll now turn the presentation over to Captain Zach Hall, who will present the police department budget.
Morning. Police budget of $38.2 million reflects a 6.4% increase over the prior year. The budget includes an estimated 6% increase in the sheriff's contract rate, plus implementation of the new Flock license plate reader system. 2 motorcycles are up for replacement next year, as well as an SUV used by the Community Action Patrol Team. Staffing levels are projected to remain the same this year, with 112 sworn deputies and 17 community services officers. The city contracts with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department to provide 205 hours of patrol coverage per day, which is the equivalent of 42 deputy sheriff positions. In addition, the city contracts for 45.5 dedicated sworn deputies, which serve as command officers and various special teams, including the recently created Old Town Metro Team, which has made a significant impact in reducing crime and increasing the safety in Old Town. Our homeless outreach team has worked in conjunction with city staff and SWAG to address this growing concern. Temecula Unified School District has partnered with the city to provide for 5 school resource officers who work to keep our schools safe. The special teams are just a few examples of how the city is able to customize the services provided through the sheriff's contract to address the local issues specific to each community. I will now turn the presentation over to City Manager Adams for some additional comments on law enforcement.
Thank you, Captain Hall. We've been having a lot of conversation of late about the benefits and priority of law enforcement and varied police models. I wanted to remind the community that in the sub-region of Riverside County, no two cities are made up the same in terms of factors that contribute to law enforcement needs and protection. For example, Temecula attracts more than 3.3 million visitors a year as a tourism destination. This creates a tourism engine of over $1.3 billion. The visitors are good, but the attraction of being a destination that attracts a volume of people does bring with it a need for enhanced and diligent law enforcement. I will submit RSO does a very good job given these large numbers. Other variables we enjoy that can generate greater potential for criminal elements include the existence of a regional shopping mall, the presence of a very large auto mall, large-scale popular community events, a desirous wine country, and a vibrant and successful downtown in Old Town, and a high-end resort casino in Pechanga to the south. Temecula is unique. It is also important for me to address local control, as I have been afforded the great privilege over the last decade in choosing whom I believe would be the best fit to lead our police and fire personnel as captain and chief, respectively, for the city of Temecula. These positions become valued members of the executive staff here, and I remain grateful to Riverside County Sheriff's Department and Fire Department for extending the city this privilege. Also important to note, when our city needs to make operational adjustments and shifts in staffing, RSO has been a willing partner. The formation of the Old Town Metro team is the most recent example of fulfilling a need given the latitude and flexibility in the existing contract with the county. Other examples include the reallocation of existing staffing to form several special teams as our city grows and our city changes and our community policing needs become more apparent. These special teams include the Special Enforcement Team, Problem-Oriented Policing Team, the Homeless Outreach Team, and the Burglary Suppression Team, who do an amazing job in community policing and take great pride in securing our community. Speaking of directed enforcement, just the other day, a gentleman emailed my office and Mayor Edwards on a law enforcement matter involving the south end of the city. He immediately received a return call from my office. He was provided correct information as a good amount of his misinformation he obtained from social media. He then also received a phone call from Temecula Sheriff Captain Zach Hall, then followed by a visit to his home by a lieutenant, which led to an adjustment in patrols and operations. The resident was, of course, pleased. His concerns were heard and the information was corrected. This happens daily, but just shines a light a little brighter on the commitment to service and our will to listen and address community concerns. I appreciate the City Council allowing me to share these examples as my office gets a great deal of questions and confusion on this topic. Law enforcement will always be the largest line item in the city's budget. And our community for 3 decades has told us this is their top priority, and the city has made it so. This budget year once again reflects a financial commitment to this public safety priority. At this time, I would like to introduce our Fire Chief, John Crater.
Thank you. The fire department budget for next year is projected to be $9.4 million, which is actually a decrease of 9.5. Due to lower CAL FIRE rates, the overall contract with the county has decreased. The contract savings is recommended to be set aside for a new fire facility acquisition fund to begin saving for the potential purchase of Station 12 in Old Town in the event the state sells the facility, as mentioned earlier. The contract cost is $16.9 million. However, $9.2 million of that offset is from the structured tax credit. The budget includes the purchase of 2 medic squads that will be utilized for firefighters for emergency response. It will replace the 2 vehicles at Station 84 and Station 92. The staffing of 4-person firefighters per engine and ladder truck with a total of 71 personnel. This will continue to meet the OSHA requirements of 2 in, 2 out for firefighter safety during structure fires. I will turn it over to Jen now to finish up the general fund section of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, John. The ending fund balance for the general fund is projected to be $27.7 million this fiscal year and $28.7 million next fiscal year. Reserves, again, are fully funded. And after deducting for future commitments, the available fund balance is projected to be $6.8 million this year and $7.3 million next year. This slide illustrates the different components of the $28.7 million fund balance. Per budget policy, 20% of operating expenditures are set aside into the Reserve for Economic Uncertainty, and an additional 5% of operating expenditures are set aside into the Secondary Reserve. These funds are utilized in the event of a major disaster, significant loss in revenue, or for a large unexpected expenditure. A portion of the fund balance is assigned and/or committed to future costs associated with capital projects previously approved in the 5-year CIP and the Pechanga-funded police officer as funds are paid in advance. Unassigned fund balance is the amount available for one-time appropriations. The general fund has had the city has had a long-standing practice of not only budgeting for the next fiscal year, but for the next 5 fiscal years. This long-term approach to financial management has served us well, especially in recent times, as we're able to forecast the long-term fiscal impacts of operational decisions made in the present. This slide illustrates the strong fiscal position of the city's general fund, which is structurally balanced over the next 5 years, with revenues exceeding expenditures each and every year. Both revenues and expenditures reflect realistic growth projections and include any known or anticipated contractual obligations. This slide further illustrates the fiscal health of the general fund by showing that fund balance remains steady and reserves are fully funded over the next 5 years. Measure S is the 1 cent transactions and use tax approved by Temecula voters in November of 2016. This revenue source became effective in April of 2017 and has generated over $110 million over the past 4 years. Fiscal year 21-22 Measure S revenue is expected to exceed $30 million with a projected 10% growth rate over the current year. Total appropriations of $33 million are in line with Council's policy guidelines, prioritizing public safety, asset management, capital projects, and general services. Public safety funding of $9.4 million is recommended to augment the police and fire department operations. Asset management funding of $3.5 million includes a deposit of $2 million into the streets maintenance fund and $500,000 each into the fleet, technology, and facilities replacement funds. Capital project investments total just under $9 million from Measure S for fiscal year 21-22 and will help fund 29 separate capital projects. And finally, general and community services funding totals $11 million, which is primarily dedicated to TCSD operations and library funding. A 5-year forecast is also prepared for the Measure S fund and is summarized here. Revenue is projected to grow 10% into 2021-22, then 4% the following year, and then taper off to 3% growth per year. Annual appropriations gradually shift from funding CIP projects toward funding higher levels of public safety and general services over time. The ending fund balance in each year is at a healthy level and available for any unforeseen one-time projects or programs. I'd like to now turn it over to Director of Community Services, Kevin Hawkins, who will walk you through the TCSD operating budget.
Thank you, Jen. Normally, I begin our budget presentation by only sharing that the mission at TCSD is to improve the quality of life here in Temecula through a complement of programs, services, events, and activities that affect our youth, adult, senior, veteran, and special needs population. But given the challenges of the past year, I must add that the emotional intelligence displayed by our community services professionals through self-awareness and regulation, motivation, and empathy, wrapped in social skill, produced a level of creativity, flexibility, and compassion that demonstrated that Temecula truly cares. For during a year marked by social distancing and uncertainty, TCSD served as the city's intentional and much needed optimistica to the community. More than ever, the importance of creating community through people, parks, and programs was evident over the past 12 to 14 months and will remain as a critically important focus for the upcoming year. Community services may have been the hardest hit department from the global pandemic, but it did not stop us from continuing to provide an array of high quality services to our community through a combination of virtual, hybrid, and when possible, actual experiences. Our remaining staff redoubled their efforts to find a way to ensure that any programs and services that could be safely offered were. During the current fiscal year, total revenue declined by 10% from last year. Many of our divisional operating budgets declined as well due to stay-at-home orders, facility closures, and pause in many of our offerings we provide. However, with the support of our wonderful IT department, virtual cultural arts and MRC performances continued to entertain the community, while our inclusive services participants were able to remain engaged and connected with friends and city staff. Additionally, as public health orders allowed, our Vital Aquatics programs resumed in the summer, while the Ronald H. Roberts Temecula Public Library provided Express Hope Pickup, which is a convenient curbside service that continues to be offered. The Mary Phillips Senior Center, although physically closed, offered the much needed curbside meal distribution program throughout the pandemic, serving hundreds of seniors each week, including many who were new to the center. As part of our human services offering, NPSC staff maintain contact with our patrons, checking on their well-being, informing them of our mobile vaccination services at the senior center, as well as creating drive-through birthday celebrations with cards, flowers, hand sanitizers, blankets, and more. And if transportation poses an issue for our seniors, NPSC staff operates the SOS shuttle services weekly, providing curb-to-curb transportation from their homes to grocery stores and back. Despite the ramping up of program offerings, the closure of the MRC later this year at Mike Nagar Park for much anticipated reconstruction will result in contract classes projecting to resume at half the level as before the pandemic. Rest assured, this will not impact the widely popular pickleball classes there, which only saw our Here Comes Santa and Get Egg events generate more positive community feedback. Along those lines, and as shared at the last council meeting, nothing marks a return to normalcy here in Temecula like one of our signature special events. With City Council direction, special events planning is in the works, and we're pleased to be able to bring back the 4th of July fireworks and ongoing movies, concert series, and other community events throughout the year. Our efforts to assist those experiencing homelessness are continuing with the partnership in place with the Social Work Action Group, or SWAG, and the Police Department's Homeless Outreach Team, as well as collaborative efforts with neighboring agencies and faith-based organizations such as the Community Mission of Hope. This teamwork has already resulted in 18 street exits so far this year, and we anticipate that very positive trend will continue in the upcoming fiscal year, excuse me. Another positive trend resulting from these efforts, combined with the incredible new playground at Sam Mix Park, is return of families to the park and the adjacent History Museum. This has also led to a collaboration with the school district on a student-led art mural series there, and the overall return of that missing soundtrack of children laughing and playing in this part of Old Town. Speaking of children, this summer will mark the completion of Friendship Park, where former council member Mike Nagar said, when kids play together, they don't draw distinctions between race and ability. We are also anticipating the return to in-person summer day camp, sports penny pickles workshop, and a continuation of last year's innovative aquatics programs. As mentioned, our contract class program is ramping back up, returning to indoor programming whenever feasible, and continuing with the outdoor classes which were so popular during the pandemic. Contract classes in particular are a wonderful opportunity for us to partner with local instructors who are experts in their field and offer a much greater variety of classes than we would be able to if we had to rely solely on staff-led programming. This variety will also be showcased in the return of our recreation guide later this year. Prior to the pandemic, during the Community Services Master Plan benchmarking process, our consultants repeatedly commented on the extraordinary scope and quality of our programming and activities. We certainly look forward to rebuilding these core offerings with a continued focus on both quality and quantity. For next fiscal year, the budget assumes a gradual, safe reopening of facilities, programs, classes, and events as allowed by public health guidelines. Revenue is expected to grow 23.2%, and expenditures are increasing 17.5% as staff returns to provide the variety of program offerings to our community. As shown in the TCSD 5-year forecast, revenue levels are expected to return gradually over the next 2 years. As the pandemic wanes and public health guidelines loosen, TCSD will be positioned to quickly return to our previous levels and provide the community around and about Temecula with our award-winning programs, events, activities, and services. I will now turn the presentation over to our Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, Isaac Garibay, to discuss citywide staffing.
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, Mayor and City Council members. As part of the budget adoption in June, a separate resolution approving the schedule of authorized positions and salary schedule will be included in the operating budget agenda item. I will provide a brief summary of the citywide staffing outlook for the next fiscal year. Today, authorized positions for fiscal year 2021-22 is increasing by 2 positions to a total of 177.7 full-time equivalent positions, which include the 5 council members. In accordance with the city's labor agreements, employees may request an evaluation of their job duties by an independent consultant to determine proper job classification for the work performed. This year, a total of 19 employees will receive reclassifications to their job titles on July 1st, the funding for which has been included in the department's operating budget. 2 project positions are recommended to be converted to authorized employees as they are currently performing job duties that are permanent in nature. Finally, there are 3 positions that are authorized, however, they are not funded in the next fiscal year. 2 of the positions will support the operations at the new Margarita Recreation Center after its reconstruction, and the other unfunded position is within the finance office, as the position has been temporarily reassigned to a different classification. Staffing for the police and fire departments are provided through the contracts with Riverside County and CAL FIRE. Police staffing is projected to stay consistent with current levels at the desired ratio of 1 officer per 1,000 residents. Fire staffing will also remain consistent with current levels and will continue to provide 4 fire personnel per fire engine and ladder truck. This chart shows the city's authorized staffing levels over the past 15 years. At the city's peak of a total of 210.8 positions were authorized. We remain 33.1 positions below that peak with 177.7 total authorized positions. I will now turn the presentation over to Director of Public Works, Pat Thomas, to walk you through the Capital Improvement Program budget.
Thank you, Isaac, and good morning, Madam Mayor and council members.
Morning.
The Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, is a comprehensive 5-year plan that addresses the capital needs of the city. Capital projects are those that cost over $30,000, have long-term lifespans, and are generally non-recurring. As the city manager mentioned previously, the fiscal year 2022 through 26 CIP is the largest in the city's history, with over $700 million in total costs. The city has identified funding sources totaling $579 million, or 83% of the total CIP. The remaining $121 million is unspecified at this time. However, before construction begins on any of these projects, a funding source will be identified. The CIP includes a total of 92 separate projects segregated by project category, and I will highlight some of the projects in each of those categories in just a moment. This slide illustrates the significant efforts of the city to leverage outside sources of funding, which has yielded tremendous results in recent years. City funding contributes roughly 24% of the total CIP funding, with outside sources such as federal and state grants, Riverside County's Transportation Uniform Mitigation Fee, or TUMF, the Measure A program. It's a 1/2 cent sales tax that's collected throughout Riverside County for transportation purposes, as well as other specific funding sources. The CIP includes the addition of 8 new projects this year. The Rainbow Canyon Road Pavement Rehabilitation Project, due to the unique nature of Rainbow Canyon Road, this project has been separated out from our otherwise pavement rehabilitation program and is anticipated to receive funding for this project in a future year. Under the Bike Lane and Trail Program, we've added a project to install lighting on the Great Oak Trail, which is in the Wolf Creek community, and this was at the request of Wolf Creek residents. Due to the popularity of the mini pump track at Ronald Reagan Sports Park, we've added a new project to construct additional infill mini pump tracks at other city park sites. And we've added funding to install additional electric vehicle charging stations at other city facilities. A project's been added to install an emergency backup generator at the Mary Phillips Senior Center with funding provided by the State of California Office of Emergency Services. A project's been added to convert existing city recycled water services, or to convert to recycled water services at 2 additional city facilities with funding provided by the Rancho California Water District. The dog park at the Mike Nagar Community Park will be renovated with funding provided by the State of California Prop 68 bond program, and funding has been added to construct pickleball courts at a city facility. Under the category of circulation projects, there are a total of 29 projects totaling $570 million. The largest of these projects is the I-15 French Valley Parkway Phase 2 project, which includes a $50 million grant from the United States Department of Transportation. We have recently received approval of our environmental revalidation from Caltrans for this project, and we anticipate moving forward with acquisition of right-of-way and advertising for bids later this year, and anticipate starting construction in early 2022. We are continuing with our pavement rehabilitation projects, which is part of our overall pavement management program. These projects are funded and constructed on a priority basis based on the city's pavement management study, which was updated a few years ago. The Nicholas Road Extension Project will extend Nicholas Road from its current terminus at Cayugarasal to Butterfield Stage Road, and this project is fully funded from the Somers Bend Community Facilities District. The Diaz Road Expansion Project will widen and complete Diaz Road between Rancho California Road and the northern city boundary, and this project is funded out of the TUMF program. And the city is working on a project to relieve congestion on the I-15 corridor The city project will be to construct an auxiliary lane northbound between Temecula Parkway and Rancho California Road, followed by Caltrans constructing auxiliary lanes between each of the other interchanges within the city. Under the category of infrastructure projects, we have 46 total projects totaling over $91 million. The new Margarita Recreation Center, that facility will be reconstructed, which is located at the Mike Nagar Community Park. We have a team, a design build team, working on plans for that project, and we anticipate starting construction on that early next year. The Community Recreation Center renovation and expansion project is underway. We'll first be constructing renovation aspects of that project, followed by expanding this facility in a future year. San Gratuitous Creek pedestrian bike trail extension. We recently had a groundbreaking ceremony for this project to extend the San Gratuitous Creek Trail between Inez Road and Murrieta Creek, which will be followed by construction of an underpass for the San Gratuitous Creek Trail at Margarita Road. The citywide sidewalks program is a continuation of an existing program to construct sidewalks at missing links where there are missing sidewalks throughout the city. And there is a comprehensive update to the general plan currently underway, which will be ongoing for the next few years. Under the category of parks and recreation projects, we have a total of 15 projects totaling over $25 million. We are working on a project to construct flood control channel reconstruction and repair at various park facilities, beginning with a project to improve Temecula Creek at the Friendship Park location. We are continuing with our program of replacing playground equipment with themed new playgrounds at parks throughout the city on a priority basis. And parks included in this year's program will be Long Canyon Creek Park and Red Hawk Park. The citywide park improvement program will continue with improvements at various park locations throughout the city. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be constructing pickleball courts this coming year, along with renovating the dog park at the Michael S. Nagar Community Park. And now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Community Development Director Luke Watson, who will talk about affordable housing projects.
Thanks, Pat. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you may recall, the city's primary funding source for affordable housing was the Temecula Redevelopment Agency. But in 2012, the state of California disbanded all redevelopment agencies within the state. The city of Temecula now serves as a successor agency to the Temecula Redevelopment Agency, otherwise known as SARTA, and is responsible for the wind down of the remaining RDA obligations, including the investment of the remaining $12.8 million in bond proceeds of the former RDA. Recently, the City Council approved funding agreements for 2 developments to provide an additional 137 affordable units within the community. These affordable developments include, first, Las Haciendas, which is located in the Uptown Temecula specific plan area and will provide 77 multifamily affordable units. Currently, the developer is seeking tax credit financing in order to begin construction on this project. And second, the Vine Creek development, which is located at the corners of Pujol and Main Street, will provide 60 affordable units, 14 of which will be set aside for residents with special needs. And like the Las Haciendas project, the developer is currently seeking tax credit financing in order to begin construction. In addition to the Las Haciendas and Vine Creek developments, the city is continuing to explore other affordable housing opportunities throughout the community, including working with Habitat for Humanity on a 3rd Habitat-led affordable development that will include 6 for-sale townhomes available to low-income families and individuals. Discussions with the Habitat for Humanity team are progressing well, and the hope is that the development will be before the City Council for your consideration in the very near future. If approved, this Habitat for Humanity project will give the city a relatively rare opportunity to add another affordable for-sale home ownership opportunity to the city's affordable housing inventory. Along with the Habitat for Humanity development, the city recently utilized remaining affordable housing bond proceeds to purchase an approximately 2-acre parcel of land in the Uptown Sports District area of the Uptown specific plan. Like the Las Haciendas site, this new property will be actively marketed to affordable housing developers for contribution to a future affordable housing development. And while the loss of the redevelopment agency removed a dedicated revenue source for affordable housing, the city has been successful in deploying the remaining residual redevelopment agency funds into a number of affordable housing developments. Although the redevelopment agency a revenue stream is no longer available, the city will continue to pursue every funding opportunity possible as we seek to meet the state mandated regional housing needs assessment goals. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to City Manager Aaron Adams to conclude today's presentation.
Thank you, Luke. Just last week, the U.S. Treasury released the anticipated guidance on the new American Rescue Plan funding that the city is expected to receive. As such, this new funding is not yet incorporated into the proposed budget. After staff has the opportunity to review the eligibility requirements for the $14 million we expect to receive over the next 2 fiscal years, we plan to bring back recommendations for appropriation at a future council meeting. As you've heard throughout this presentation, the city is financially stable over the ensuing 5-year period, with reserves fully intact, structurally balanced with revenues exceeding expenditure projections, and a very robust capital improvement program that is 83% funded. However, with the ever-changing environment, it is still prudent to continue to monitor the budgetary impact caused by the pandemic and bring back any budget revisions that may be necessary throughout the year. Looking forward, each day seems to bring glimmers of hope as our state and county move further into reopening phases and orders become more relaxed. Personally, I want to wish continued good health and blessings to the City Council, our employees, and our residents and businesses. Special thank you to our finance budget team, led by Director Jennifer Hennessy, with Fiscal Service Managers Tricia Hawk and Rudy Graciano, and Management Analyst Tina Rivera. I'd also be remiss if I did not recognize our Assistant City Manager, Greg Butler, who is invaluable in the budget preparation and review process. And as many of you know, this is the last budget that Mr. Butler will be involved in as he moves on into retirement. So this concludes our presentation this morning, and the staff and myself are available, Madam Mayor, for any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Aaron. And, on behalf of the City Council, we can't thank you enough. It is remarkable in light of everything that's happened over the last year and a half. And the city remains fiscally strong. Not only that, we have the largest capital improvement budget in the history of the city. And I remember many of them, maybe all of them. It's incredible. And just to add to that, I'd like to remind everyone that the city is a cash and carry for the most part. We put the money aside. We find revenue, we find money and funding for projects in as many places as we can possibly look, including the federal government, the state government, AQMD, different agencies. And so we put that money aside before we start those projects. So that's an incredible accomplishment. And do any council members have questions or comments? Stu, I see you now.
Okay, I got a question for Captain Hall.
He's here.
Okay, that 6% increase, how much of that was the new camera system?
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah, to pay for the startup of the camera system, it came
Right.
out of salary savings. So money that we didn't spend that was already in the contract.
Okay. All right, that was my only question.
That's great. Anyone else?
And Councilmember Stewart, if I may, the flock system, I presume that's what you're referencing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that contract is coming before the City Council. I believe it's on the agenda for next Tuesday, and you'll have a final say on approving or not approving that technology. But that program did go through the Public Traffic Safety Commission earlier in the year.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? I'm going to make sure I can see everyone too. Okay. Zach, I see you now. You weren't on my screen a second ago.
I'm here. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to so I don't have a a question. Are we okay with comments now? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So quite an impressive presentation. So I just first of all, just want to say thank you to the budget team and staff in general. You all did quite an amazing job in an extremely difficult year. When you actually look at what we've done this year in a global pandemic, it doesn't quite square often with the narrative, but it's just certainly impressive what we continue to do and the quality of life we continue to provide. The one thing that really sticks out to me is these meetings aren't often well attended, right? We still got zero public comments and things like that, which is a good thing. I'm considering going door to door and just like reading this to people because there's a lot of good stuff in here that often gets overlooked. Maybe it should be required reading before you comment online, perhaps, and might make that some sort of option in the future. But the thing that just really sticks out to me again is just how well the city's managed. So from a council member's perspective, I'm extremely proud of the work we're doing. But I think more importantly, just from a resident's perspective, I'm extremely proud to be a resident and looking at what we do, what we provide, and how we plan for the future is just so important to me and my family. And I know the balance of the council and staff and everyone that works here in the city as a whole. So I just really wanted to say, I certainly appreciate all the work that went into this and just a good hearty thank you.
Matt.
Well, well said, Zach. And I think we all agree it's a remarkable thing you all have done here. It's also pretty remarkable how, over the past year, what we anticipated was happening under COVID is not how the city responded. Other communities didn't fare as well and weren't as blessed in their economic outcome. So, great work, especially city manager's office and finance director, not just preparing us for this, but helping us weather this and making some solid decisions along the way. I did have one quick question though. So as we are contemplating.
Oops, Matt, you hit your, there you go. There you go.
That's the important part, and that's like mute. As we are contemplating and getting ready to reopen and all that, I know we've provided some support for local businesses over the last year as far as grant funding and so forth. Can you explain if we're providing any additional support as businesses are getting ready to reopen here, and what kind of programs we have currently or will roll out? Yeah,
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Last summer we provided $500,000. It was a combination of general fund as well as community development block grant, federal funds as grants to business and primarily small business. And so that we have exhausted all of that. We got it out into in the hands of business owners. And then on the heels of that, we appropriated, or the city council appropriated, about $865,000 in an additional relief for homeowners and renters in the form of relief due to the pandemic. And that program is just been extended. And we're finding that is not as well received as the business grants were, because there were so many other opportunities for folks to receive relief from rent and or mortgages that you can't sort of stack these things up. And so they could either pick one or the other. So there may be an opportunity there if we do not utilize that for the intended purpose, that we reprogram some of those dollars back into the business community. That could be an option. But as I mentioned on the end, we're reviewing the Department of Treasury's eligibility for the federal funds that are coming down to the city later this year. And there may be an opportunity with those to do something in the arena for business assistance too. And if there is, that'll be on our short list to bring back to the city council.
Okay, and just following up too on the capital improvement budget, $700 million. I mean, that's just remarkable. I mean, I think it needs to be said again, how, amazing. I mean, we've never had that conversation before. But can you, or Pat, maybe can you talk a little bit about, because it's, capital improvement, yes, but it also is a pretty big influx, into the community and the region as far as jobs and construction and other things that are going on, right? This isn't just, city dollars going to city employees. It has a much more significant impact beyond that.
Sure, I'll take a shot at that if that's okay with you, Aaron. Yeah, as you described, Councilmember Ron, the vast majority, actually all of our capital projects are done by contract. So we prepare plans for these projects and then solicit bids from contractors and then put those contractors to work, basically. So as you mentioned, a lot of those projects will result in jobs in this community over the next 5 years. We have a number of major transportation projects that'll be coming out. We have the facilities projects, the Margarita Recreation Center, other improvements at city park facilities, and various other projects that we'll be bidding out and again, putting that into the economy here locally. And as you mentioned also, and what was emphasized in the presentation, of that total budget, only 24% of that amount is funding from city sources, with the 76% of that amount coming from outside funding sources led by a grant from the United States Department of Transportation. We receive funding from various state of California programs, and many of those programs also are competitive. So we've worked very hard at applying for those various funding sources and have been successful in being able to attract those funds to Temecula.
Great, thank you.
So Jessica, I see your hand. I don't see your face, but I do see your hand.
Yeah, no, my camera's broken.
Oh, shoot. I wonder.
It was upside down the other day, and now I can't even be seen, but I'm here.
Oh,
so that's okay.
You can come in here with me.
I know I'm in running around dropping kids off, but I've been here the whole time. And
oh, okay, good.
But I do have one question though, and I don't know if it would really be addressed to everyone or even Aaron Adams or even as well as Captain Hall. So one of the things that I was listening to and I wanted to get more understanding is, as we currently right now, we have one police officer to every 1,000 people in our city, so for our population. And is that going to increase as our visitors increase as well? Is that something we've looked at as far as for safety?
Yes, I'll take a stab at that, council member, and then Captain Hall can jump in, or Jen can jump in. But the one officer per 1,000 is kind of is a bit of an archaic formula, in our professional opinion, to use for staffing law enforcement. But it's that way because it's written that way in the city's general plan. And as we're going through sort of amending the general plan, it would be, I think, my recommendation to consider more prudent metrics in that opportunity for staffing of law enforcement. So that's one thing. The second part of your question is, yes, in the 5-year forecast that we shared today with the city council, we did factor in potential population increases that would generate additional law enforcement personnel. So those are layered into the 5-year.
Okay, so that was perfectly said. I know, Aaron, we've looked at that or just briefly recently talked about that. So in your professional opinion, when is a good time to start looking at that ancient 1 to 1,000 and start moving that and saying, okay, it's time to say, all right, we're going to be growing a population. Obviously, our visitors are going to be increasing, especially with pandemic change. So, is your thought and recommendation that we begin to actually look at that as a city and as a council?
Yeah, and that's gonna happen organically over the next 12 to 18 months with the council and staff as we go through the various elements of the general plan and the revisions of that. So This council will be involved in it. This staff will be involved in it, but it's going to be right in front of us over the next year.
Excellent. Excellent.
And I would think that the public safety subcommittee will be working directly with staff to take a look at that. And you know, the one, interestingly, over the years, we've questioned that number 1 per 1,000. It's an arbitrary number, not on our part, but you know, industry wide. Every city strives for that 1 officer per 1,000, and I don't know if anyone really knows where that established figure came from, because certainly every city is different. So what, 1 per 1,000 for one city might be, not nearly enough, and 1 per 1,000 for a different type of city or other city, maybe more than enough. So I think the subcommittee will be looking at that too.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and that's exactly what I thought. It's as we grow and get bigger as a city, we want to stay as safe as possible because we've been such a great, safe city. So why change that? That's what keeps bringing people here. So
right, exactly.
I agree.
Yeah, we will never jeopardize that. Whatever the number is, that's the number that we will staff in order to maintain safety in Temecula. So it's working so far. It's been great for us so far, but not to say that it always will be. So that's a great question. Anybody else? No? Okay, Mr. City Manager, how would you like to proceed?
We're gonna, I didn't hear any major changes. We'll incorporate some of the commentary that the council shared today into our formal presentation to all of you on June 8th, I think it is. Yes, June 8th. Is that right, Jen? Yeah, we'll be back in front of the council for formal adoption. And just in closing, I want to thank the council for your support, for recognizing sort of the efforts of the staff. And yeah, we did things a little differently, but we also did things a little differently on the heels of a very different environment that none of us have ever operated in a global pandemic. So very proud of the team, appreciate the community. And I think this budget story is a really good one. And we hope our residents will be pleased with what we've been able to put together for the next 12 months and for the next 60 months in our 5 years. So we'll put it all together. We'll be ready to present again in a few more weeks. And we thank everyone, Madam Mayor, for support.
An amazing outcome, everyone. Thank you for your hard work and vigilance over the last year and a half, especially. And at times when people said that the city wasn't doing anything because of COVID and there was nobody here working, it's obvious that everybody was working. And we know that you're working doubly hard to make things work during COVID. We still maintain a fantastic level of programs and services and outreach and maintenance levels and things that we weren't able to get done during regular time, even maintenance on the city hall and things like that, because people, we had fewer people here. So business as usual, people responded to the city's virtual city services. We had more planning applications and permits and things like that than we have historically. So thank you on behalf of the City Council to everyone who made all of this happen. It is a remarkable, remarkable story. So if we have no other questions or comments, then we can adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting of the Temecula City Council, which will be on May 25th. And we stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.